I want to welcome everyone to today's discussion, Growing Your Business and How to Take Your Design Firm to the Next Level. It's been now over a year that we from Schumacher have brought people together on panels to discuss about business topics, but also as a community. And we see this, from where everyone is joining from. I'm really, really impressed by how the last 12 months and Zoom and these panels have brought us together. If you have missed a session of the Business Success webinar, or you found this one particularly interesting, you can go online and you see all the past webinars. They're on YouTube under Schumacher. You can also go on Instagram. We all on the panel have an Instagram representation or name, and you're going to find your way there. Let me introduce the three panelists. We just had four, but Nina, you let the fourth one go. But let me introduce. Okay, let me introduce the three exceptional masterminds and creative powerhouses that are on the panel today with me. I would love to start with you, Nina. Nina's enthusiasm and interest in design and interiors was developed when at an age of 19, she went to work for the famous John Fowler. Shortly afterwards, she set up her own decorating business, where one of her first commissions was to design a castle in Scotland and Annabel's Private's Member Club in London in her unmistakably elegant and rich color palette. Further developing her business, Nina opened her interior design offices and studio, where she creates a successful fabric and wallpaper collection internationally distributed by Osborne and Little. Her famous retail shop for home accessories and gifts is at 9 Walton Street in London. And, hopefully we can all travel soon again. Plan your trip to London. It's really a trip, worth a trip. And Nina, you have remained a firm favorite over the last many decades. So it's a real pleasure and an honor having you here on the panel today.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And if you hear growling, it's not me, it's the dog.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Second, I would love to introduce the only gentleman, in the middle of the two ladies here today, Grant Pierrus. Grant is the author of the award-winning London-based luxury interior design blog, Interior Style Hunter. Having trained as an interior designer and interior stylist at Central St. Martin's in London, he set up the Interior Style Hunter as a way to share his passion and knowledge of interior design with the aim of helping in creating beautiful spaces. In addition to his blog, Grant founded Pierrus Agency, which provides marketing and business consultancy to the interior design trade. And he founded the Virtual Design Fair, which is a new way to discover and connect with suppliers to the interior design and architectural sector. Grant, it's also a real honor to have you on today on the panel. Thank you.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure.
And last but not least, I'm also thrilled to have Cara Woodhouse on the panel today. Cara specializes in luxury private residential commercial projects. Cara encapsulates the fundamental values of design, such as form, function, and symmetry. She combines luxurious comfort with unsurpassed customer service. Having lived in, I think, New York, Los Angeles, and London, she brings her worldly knowledge of design to each and every project. Cara Woodhouse Interiors is a full-service design firm based in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and Cara strives to find the perfect balance in each space. Cara, thank you for tuning in today out of New York. And last but not least, also quickly to introduce myself, I'm Benni Frowein, I'm Schumacher's president, and I'm really thrilled to have so many people today also listening in. So we have around 50 minutes left. For everyone who's listening, we also have a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if you hover over it and you have a question, please enter them. We will try together to answer your questions. Just do me the favor and make the question short, because I have to read and speak and think and pose questions. So it just makes it all a little easier. Shall we dive in?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So I have a very difficult first question to you. And Nina, I would love to start with you. I would love to hear what the starting point for you was to become an entrepreneur and start your own business, especially because you've started it so early in your career. I think you were 22. I think we're all dying to hear about what motivated you.
Well, I was working for John Fowler, and I was in his interior design team. But I'd always had this, I'd had two hankerings. One was to go into the magazine world, and one was to have a shop. But I also had this feeling that I really was a little bit of a sort of con artist. I mean, I thought, when are they going to figure out that I really don't know what I'm doing? And maybe the answer to all of this is to start my own business. So then nobody can get rid of me. So I mean, I'm not sure that it was also all very sound thinking, but miraculously it worked. And I'd been working while I was at John Fowler. I brought a couple of jobs in myself. One was a great friend, and one was a cousin of my stepfather. And so I'd done my own work within the company. And then the friend of mine wanted very much to start a business, and she wanted to be what was then allowed to be called a sleeping partner. It didn't mean anything peculiar. It was just, she was the business and the money behind me. And we started our decorating business together. And it was called Elliott and Campbell. It sounded like a rather sort of dour firm of Scottish solicitors, but in fact we were interior designers, and that was great fun. That's how I started, really.
Interesting. Cara, was it the same for you, that you kind of, Nina, I don't want to say stumbled into your entrepreneurship?
No, you're right. I did.
Or was it a completely different approach and starting point for you?
No, actually, I could relate to Nina very well, because I actually stumbled into my first practice as well. I've owned 4 interior design businesses. I was working for Coleman & Kravis in New York, and then worked for a couple other firms. I ran offices for Cheryl Knae Interiors, and at the time, Hayden Perone Associates. And I always said that if there was one business that I did not want to own, it would be an interior design business, because I used to see all these mistakes happen, and for all these companies and all the money that you had to kind of lay out for any mistakes that would go on. I was like, this is definitely not a business that I want to get into. And then it stumbled, and fell in my lap. I was approached to do my first very big project in Miami, in South Beach, for this private estate on the water there. It was a friend of a friend. And I had a girlfriend at Coleman & Kravis who always said she wanted to start her own design firm. She was still working there. And as soon as I got, this project, I called her. I was like, we're going into business together, quit your job at Coleman & Kravis, and we're starting this business together. We had no idea how to run a business. I mean, we had amazing training, and my background, I went to school and, had a foundation for it, but really just, so many mistakes along the way to, starting our first firm. And it just kind of took off. It was all word of mouth. And Ellie Coleman was actually super kind and was kind of feeding her smaller budget projects to us, which was super helpful, getting us, started and launched. But that was 24 years ago. And we expanded and grew, and yeah, that's the beginning part of my design story and how I got started owning my first business.
Yeah, don't give too much away how you grew and so on, because we have 45 minutes to go.
Yes, more to touch on. Yes, of course.
But that's also very interesting, because it also doesn't sound as if, you worked half a year on a business case and then what you learn at university, basically, but you kind of dove in because you had an opportunity. Grant, how was it? How did it all start for you? Share that with us.
Well, I'm gonna talk about the design part of my life. When I lived in Cape Town, when I was in my early 20s, I used to develop property with my ex-partner. So I've always been interested in design, and I sort of moved to London. in my late 20s, and I got a job in the city working in marketing, and was a great firm. And luckily with creatives, you know, we're working with incredible clients like White Cube and Anish Kapoor and Zaha Hadid. And it being in the marketing team, I got very involved in those firms, and we started looking at, you know, speaking to them about marketing and, you know, additional services from us in the city. And actually I sort of realized, you know, I didn't want to be in the city. I just didn't. And so I landed up at Central St. Martin's, which is a creative university here in London, studying interior design. And I did this course and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And my sort of skill from the city, digital marketing, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to start a blog and just see what happens. So I started the blog, Interior Style Hunter. I didn't want to use my own name. I was just like, let's test this out. Let's see what's going to happen. And it exploded. I mean, absolutely just blew the water out of the sea at the time. It was amazing. All of a sudden, I was in Shanghai with Design Shanghai. I was at Milan at you know, Salone del Mobile. I was in Paris at Maison Objet. I was at Decorex. I was in New York, RCFF. I was all over the place. I mean, the blog just blew up. It was amazing. Within 6 months, I had Christie's calling saying, we want to do a collaboration with you. I had amazing brands coming in saying, you know, the way you talk about design, the way you're writing, we love it. And it was about, I went for an event. It was a First Dibs event held here in London. And I met the host they were co-hosting with, Rachel Laxer. And she said to me, she said, I've been watching you carefully over the last few months. Come back in the week. I want to chat with you. And so I was still looking for opportunities at this point. Like, what am I going to do in this sector? Just looking around, you know, same Cara. I'd looked at design firms and just thought, that's not what I want to get into, but I love this sector so much. And Rachel said to me, everything you're doing for yourself, digital marketing, can you do it for me? And I just thought, bingo, this is it. Skill from the city, passion and design together, there's my business. And that's how I got started.
Super interesting. I mean, what I do see as a common thread between the three of you, and I think it's relevant for everyone also who is listening and maybe not owning their own business, but working for someone as an interior designer, you know, it starts always with an opportunity that you're looking for. You know, it starts with a project, it starts with someone, and probably being open to it. Rather than planning it for 3 years and then you know, and then somehow, you know, opening your shop as you might learn at university how to do it. Cara, when was there the moment in which you felt, okay, I've opened my business, now it's time to grow, or like this is not enough anymore? You know, I'm wondering for this like turning, you know, about this turning point from being a one-person show with your partner to like, you know, was it the next bigger project, or was there a moment where you said, I'm going to make this now?
You know, my first company, so like I said, I've had 4 firms. That was my first firm. And we luckily grew pretty quickly. You know, we were taking on really nice size projects for a firm just getting off the ground launching. And we grew our firm basically as needed. So as projects were coming in, we were hiring assistants. And then I would say probably like 2 years into owning our first company, we expanded. We got like a much larger space in Soho. We were up to 20 employees at one point. We had project managers, assistant project managers, you know, really grew very fast. I almost want to say like too fast, to be honest, which kind of leads me to where my next business went, because I kind of got burnt out and I felt like I was managing employees and I was losing being the creativity of having that firm and having that connection with clients and really being a hands-on in design. So my next firm, I actually purposely scaled down and decided to just take on a certain amount of projects myself, like 1 to 2 large projects with an assistant, and keeping it very small and being, you know, there's just, you know, there's 2 sides to this. It's like, you know, I never had like a set business plan or goal. It was kind of, this was just my experience and what felt right or not right to me at the time. Which now, you know, this is the fourth firm, Cara Woodhouse Interiors, which I started in 2016. That really, you know, I have a really, after being in this business for so long, now I have a handle, and now I am kind of veering off and doing a lot of capsule collections and collaborations, and I'm getting into designing product, and I feel very involved in every project, very creative. I have an amazing team with me, but you know, that is my support, and they kind of help get involved in everything. But I don't want to get that big as I did, you know, in the beginning of my career. I like it a little bit more manageable. I also have 2 young boys and a husband, and really want balance. And I feel like I finally have found that. So
yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like also, especially in your first, let's say, growth wave, you know, it was a reaction to demand, and you kind of reacted to it and you grew with it.
yes.
Nina, you made, you know, obviously also very conscious efforts in expanding your business and your brand. You know, you started with the shop, but you also did your interior design business. You also have this incredible fabric line that everyone who doesn't know it should really look at it right after this call, actually. I'm a real big admirer of your collection. What was for you this moment where you felt you wanted to branch out and grow?
I think that actually, strangely, the fabric collection started slightly in the way that I started my other business, because I was trying to use a fabric or two, and they were discontinued. And I kept, instead of thinking, well, maybe I should take notice of the fact that nobody else in the world likes this fabric except for me, I decided to sort of start a small fabric collection of my own. And that grew rather, you know, as it does, like sort of topsy, really. And I found a document in literally a wallpaper peeling off the wall in Scotland. And I said to the owners of this castle, may I copy this fabric? It's absolutely wonderful. And I will give you a bolt of it to do your own house. And so that's how I really started, with documents. And then it got so big that I was wearing heart-shaped glasses in order to go to the bank and ask for more money, because I thought this was bamboozle them into thinking that maybe I was, I don't know, sort of. Then I changed the heart glasses for horn rims, you know, tortoiseshell, to look more serious, and borrowing more and more money, because I had 6 colorways and everybody wanted the one that was out of stock. It was a nightmare. So then I went to, somebody came to me actually from Colfax and Fowler and said, I realized you need help. And I'd like to come and join you. And it was a man called Henry Greenfield who'd run all their fabric. So that was fabulous. So he came to me and he organized the fabrics. And then actually what he did was he went to Osborne and Little and said, can we use your storage facilities? Because we've now got all this fabric. And they said, you know what, we would really like to license Nina Campbell and have her as part of our stable, which was fantastic because, as you know perfectly well, collections are hugely expensive to produce, and the books and the sampling, and then somebody rings up from God knows where and says that her wallpaper hanger has put it on and it's fallen off the wall and it's clearly my fault, and then she lets it be known that they've worked together for 70 years, and you think maybe he shouldn't be hanging wallpaper any longer, and that could be the problem. But and I didn't want to have any of those bothers, and so in fact suddenly I handed it all to Osborne and Little, who paid me a royalty, and I had the fun of designing it and doing the colors and going to the wallpaper factories and the print factories and watching it all. So I'm super in control of it, but they do the sort of running of it, and that's what they're good at.
You picked basically the part that you really enjoy, you know, the design part, and the rest of it you kind of outsource.
That's right. Aren't you pleased you didn't ask me to join you?
No, but that's also super interesting because although the story is so different from the one with Cara, it's again, you kind of, you know, one thing led to the next, and suddenly, you know, you found this wallpaper peeling off the wall. Very interesting. So that was, you know, it just kind of came to you, and you grabbed the opportunities.
I think that is what it is. And then I think the other, well, maybe this will be one of your questions.
Let's see. Grant, how is it been for you? You know, is it like in the same vein of you're open and walking openly through the streets basically, and you grab opportunities, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, exactly. I think, I've been very careful with how we've grown, and there have been points where we've got a little too big for us to carefully and closely manage. We're also very respectful of who our clients are. We're very selective about who we work with. And we need to make sure that we can add so much value to their businesses. But that means we need to be really hands-on. And so to grow this into a huge marketing agency is just not going to work. And it's just not going to add value to our clients, And some of those images that you shared at the start are, private events that we have for our clients. Private dinners that we host together with brands where people can get to know each other and have these behind the scenes sort of connections and knowledge sessions with each other, where it doesn't feel threatening, even though there's a lot of competitors in the room. And we're very key, a key point about what we do is building community. And we do that, in the design world through different projects, whether it's bringing a show house from New York to London, whether it's, hosting a private art event with a client out in Cape Town and having, 100 property developers arrive and 30 artists, or whether it's a private dinner with a brand here in London with 26 interior designers for dinner. We're very community oriented, and we've got a Facebook group as well, which, is about 500 designers in there, but it's so active. Everyone's working together. We're looking, broader than just London. And I think through all these activities, we pick up opportunities for our clients. That's what we do. That's our job. So I've got to be out. I've got to be networking. I've got to be looking for opportunities. I've got to be engineering opportunities. And one of the things that I'm really good at is thinking, okay, there's 3 people in the room here. Let's look 6 months ahead. What opportunities do you think they could be experiencing with their businesses? So who needs to meet them, and put people together like that? That's how we work. And because we work like that, we can't be a huge, big firm. So we've got a small team, and it's actually perfect.
I mean, it's interesting because what I'm writing down for myself now, is that if you are on the day-to-day too much, and if you try to, just finish your project and, on the weeds, you're not creating opportunities for yourself. So I'm really taking that away from what you said. Nina, just really quickly coming back to what you said, because, first Cara said something similar, and then you kind of that you grew with opportunities you saw. You need to be very brave because you kind of need to see something and jump at it. So is that, am I interpreting it right? That you kind of need to be brave in the moment and just go with it, or how do you?
I think you do have to be brave. And I remember talking to a war hero once, and in the Second World War, and he'd sat on the back of a tank lobbing bombs off the back of it. And I said, "My God, you were brave." And he said, "No, not brave, stupid." And I think there's a sort of correlation there. I mean, don't think it through too much. Just go with it, and do that spur of the moment thing. Because if you analyze it and think, and maybe this and maybe that, I don't think you ever take that leap. And that's this one's going to leap into the somewhere. I think that could be a problem. I think you want to just think, this is a great idea, I'm going to go with it. What's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah, very interesting. And Cara, you said before, you kind of, you scaled back because you wanted to be closer to the design business. So I understand that's your motivation. Nina, maybe one more. Oh, the dog is barking. But then, Cara, I start with you. What was your motivation to grow? Because I think it's so important also for everyone who is listening, like what comes with it, or why is it, is it a financial gain? Is it, that you want to have more impact? I would love to find that out from the 3 of you, what your motivator is. And then we're going to get a little bit more specific with tips and tricks for everyone that is listening.
Are you asking Cara or me?
I'm asking Cara, and then I right away after I ask you.
Okay.
So my motivation, initially, I think my motivation has changed, obviously, as I've grown and everything. I think initially my first motivation was I didn't want to work for somebody else. I was like, I want to have that freedom, design freedom, more financial freedom, and wanted to be in charge. I also think that it definitely has to do with personality, and the same with Nina and Grant. I think, you have to take risks, like I'm the type of person that if something comes my way, where a lot of people kind of overthink it and analyze it, and they're afraid, and they're kind of, can I do this, and not have maybe the confidence. I've always been the type of person where I just I'll throw myself into something like 1,000,000%. Like, I don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but here we go. Let's try and let's do it. I think there's definitely a part of that, just talking to everybody on this panel, I think we share that. I think that's something that being an entrepreneur and taking a risk and not being afraid and taking chances, I think that's definitely a huge part of it. I lost the question though. What were you asking?
The motivation.
So motivation now, I mean, where I'm at in my business now, my motivation is I absolutely love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I'm a creative individual. I feel like I need to be creative. I need to express that, which gives me joy and purpose. I've tried also being a stay-home mom at one point, and I couldn't do it. I was like, this is just not, I love my children. I love being a mother, but that for me doesn't fulfill me completely. I want to be a business owner. I want to create. I want to also make my own money and financially, be set up. I feel accomplished from that. These are all kind of my motivators, and having a team and working with people and clients, just the whole business of what, I've created. It fulfills me in every way.
Thank you, Cara. Nina, what is for you the motivation, especially also having those three different arms, your shop, your interior design business, and the fabric line?
Well, I think the motivation is very much what Cara said. I'm much better off being my own boss, and then it gives you freedom. I mean, I've had 2 children. I'm 3 children. I've got 5 grandchildren, so I have the freedom to go and watch their match if or take them shopping or do whatever I like. And if I want to work through the weekend, I can do that too. So I think that's really important, actually. And I think having the 3 businesses, what I love about it is that I can be in the shop, and I love the creativity of the tabletop, because I'm passionate about laying the table and china and glass and things for the home. So I love doing that. I used to go to all the trade shows buying, and that was just great. I loved all that, seeing. And I think in a way that helped me, because you saw what was happening outside in sort of even things that were more available to the general public. So that could influence your color palette for maybe the next fabric line you were going to do. And you sort of learned. And then the decorating is a passion. Whether I'm bossy and interfering, I probably am. I just go into a house and think, God, if they just moved this furniture and did that, and it would all be so simple. And so, and I also think, as I'm obviously the oldest of the bunch, is that it's a job you never have to stop. And I can't imagine what I would do if I didn't work, because I don't know, I think it'd be so dull. I mean, okay, so you could go to another lunch, or I don't know what you could do, we go shopping, or go for another walk and go and look at a cow in a field. But I like to be part of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Very inspiring. Grant, is your motivation very similar to those of Cara and Nina?
It's an interesting question, but I've got something else to add. I mean, freedom, absolutely. Freedom of choice and freedom of being able to, take those crazy ideas and just dive straight in and do them. Don't analyze them too much. We'll just make it work along the way. And very much that sort of approach. But also, I'm really passionate about people, relationships, and communities. And I know that when communities come together, and maybe it's the South African in me, you know, when communities come together, you can do incredible things together. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. You know, I have phenomenal friendships with my clients. You know, we travel all over the world together. We're, you know, in each other's houses for dinners and this and that, because we're just working all the time. And, you know, so you land up building these groups of friends, and things like, you know, one of my clients who's based in New York said to me, you've got to go and look at the show houses in New York. You've got to go because we need to do one in London. And I went to go and have a look at Kips Bay and a few others. And I just thought we absolutely need to do that in London, because London is so insular. The design world here is so insular. You know, it's very cliquey. We need to open this up. And we brought, you know, a big show house to London. We had a show house, you know, where I think it was 5,000 visitors. We had, you know, 26 interior designers in 2 houses next door to each other. It was an incredible experience, and that built community. And I'm so passionate about that. And at the moment, I'm also on a charity set up by Alex Dawley and Sophie Ashby called United in Design, where we're looking at diversity in the sector. Again, it's about building community and opening up this incredible sector to a broader audience out there, because we are so lucky to work in this sector. It's incredible.
So let's assume I am the owner of Benni Frowein Interiors, and I work by myself. And, you know, it's been going very well, you know, but I'm still by my own. So I would like to ask the three of you, and Grant, maybe I just ask you, as being also a consultant, you know, and helping people. What would you suggest within my own field? How do I grow my business? Because maybe I'm not as lucky as, you know, Cara, that, you know, projects would come to me, you know, so, you know, especially now today, you know, you have to really find people, and you have to, you know, what would you suggest I do, like very specifically, to grow my company now from me alone to someone else? Where do I find projects?
I think before you find projects, you could be very clear about what you do and what your approach is. Who do you do that for? And where is there a good fit between that? You can't just go into the street and work for anybody. You know, if you're going to have it's so competitive. You need to go out with your USPs and really understand, this is what I'm really good at as a designer. It could be the way you design. It could be the way you use color. It could be all sorts of things. It doesn't necessarily need to be style. You could be a multi-styled designer that's able to do lots of different styles. But you need to find what you're great at. What are you really good at? And play around with that. Look through your imagery. Look through, you know, speak to your clients. What did you enjoy about working with me? Go and ask them. And then take that and think about, right, who do I want to work with? And that's how you start to hone it down, or niching it down, basically. That's the best way to grow a small interior design business that we see.
How do I find those clients? Or how do I find, so let's assume I defined that for me, and it's super helpful. Like, how do I get to customers? Is this all through Instagram, or what else would you suggest I do?
It's a real mix. So still nowadays, you know, our clients, they're getting the majority of new business coming from referrals from existing clients, but social media is absolutely picking up. And I think it's really important to understand who are those gatekeepers or influencers that are around the client base that you want to get in front of, and start talking to those people. So for example, you know, is it estate agents? Is it, you know, family offices that are looking after properties for wealthy families? Is it concierge services? Who's the gatekeeper? You know, start figuring that out. What magazines are they reading? Start trying to get into those magazines. Build visibility in your client's world. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Cara, what would be your advice to me, you know, with my one-person firm, especially because you've been through that cycle several times? Where do I find clients? How would I grow my business?
So well, I could speak off of experience, my own experience, but I think definitely spreading the word, first and foremost, before social media, that's what we had, right? So networking, spreading the word to your circle of friends. You could also reach out to developers, builders, real estate agents, saying, local things. And I think also, initially when you start out, maybe you're not going to get a full house, crazy big budget project. You have to start somewhere small. You have to build your portfolio. So even taking on a room here, a space there, just to get you going. And I think imagery, definitely shooting your projects and having imagery for social media. And getting it out there. I mean, that's the key of Instagram and Facebook and, now TikTok and all these other things that everyone's doing. It gives everybody access to you, right? So like when I started out in this design business, it was just word of mouth. Now my photographs are seen worldwide of my projects, which I didn't have that, which is so key and so amazing that everybody has this now. I do kind of like one-on-one consultations also with like emerging designers and things like that, giving advice to people. And I think that starting out in these times and with social media, I think even putting together inspiration, what you want to project out into the world of what your eye, the imagery of what you want to represent your firm and your company. You could do that now, posting inspiration pictures of other people's work that inspires you, that you want to be similar in style to them, to furniture pieces, and maybe starting your little projects or even your own home, setting up, staging a part of your home, photographing it and getting that up there, spreading the word. I think that these are all definitely key tools. And again, like the traditional networking, like I said, I think tapping into different resources, really, like, you have to be creative about it, right? There's not one set way, there's no wrong or right way. And you kind of have to just like hit the pavement and try everything until something, with that saying, if you throw enough shit on the wall, something will stick. So I feel like it's kind of, that you have to try every avenue.
And I think, like work, it sounds like hard work. And I think part of the hard work is not only the hours you spend, it's also the, uncomfortable feeling that you don't know how much or what will stick on the wall.
Right.
Being okay with that uncomfortable feeling. Nina, what would you suggest? Benni Frowein Interiors, you've obviously grown your business. Is there something else where you say like, okay, Benni, really think of that. That's how you're gonna grow.
I think that both Cara and have said exactly what you should do. I started so long ago that of course a lot of it came from word of mouth, and I was so young that my parents had friends that needed, just as Cara said, the drawing room done. So you don't turn down a drawing room or a living room or a sitting room or a bedroom. You do it all because you never know what will come from that. But I think the only thing to remember is that, first of all, when you do start a job, having found the job, you have to be really on it, and you have to realize that it's not all about making it look pretty, it's all about actually delivering it. And if you don't deliver and something doesn't arrive, or it arrives broken, and you don't put, it's sort of 10% glamour and it's 90% hard work. And if you fail on that bit, then you're cooked, frankly. They'll say, well, had some nice ideas, but, we waited 9 months and the bed arrived with no bed balance. I think you have to be really on top of that side of the business and not get carried away. And I also say to people, don't get carried away. Sometimes I've seen people, they get a little bit of coverage in a magazine and they suddenly think they're important. You're not important. You're actually a public servant. You're doing this for somebody else. It's their money. So remember, would you spend your money that way? And I think you have to be very conscious of that side, of the financial side of it, and what it means to the client. So I think there's a lot of things to think about, having got that client, as to how you deliver.
A very close interior designer friend of mine said once, the only glamorous moment in the life of an interior designer is when you look at the pictures from the photo shoot.
Yeah.
Nina, maybe I ask you, as the first person for the next question, because you've branched out so much, or with the shop, with your fabric line. Which areas would you expand into if you were me, again, Benni Frowein Interiors? Would you suggest, well, rather, grow in interior design because that's what you know and that's what you're good at? Or would you say, oh no, definitely try to get collaborations with furniture manufacturers? Or what would you do and why?
Well, I think with your background, I would think you've got an enormous sort of library of knowledge of textiles, furniture, and all of that. So I think it would be interesting to grow on that and sort of think, well, I can put together furniture, I can put together fabrics, I can put together a line. And I think that would be rather fun to do. I mean, I think the other thing, if I wasn't doing what I do anyway, I would love to do a little bit more of that, go more into, not mass market, but I'd like to go more into almost mass market, or, I think that would be rather fun, because I love putting lots of things together rather than just, let's say a table top or a fabric line. And I think with what you can do, I think you've got that ability, and I would think that would be rather fun. Mm-hmm. And also, I think possibly maybe give you more creative freedom, because remember that your client has an opinion as well, and then they might be married to a man who has another opinion, which is could conflict as well. So you've got to be also about 100% diplomat to become an interior designer, and have no ego whatsoever, because that you just have to just deal with it and come back at the situation again and say, you know what, maybe could we think about that again? I mean, you're managing people as well.
Mm. Grant, if you put your consulting hat on, what would be your recommendation, which areas to grow? Stay within my core business as an interior designer, or also kind of, go into the other fields, as Nina said, because it would fulfill, it would be fun for her?
I mean, we are in the middle of quite a few collaborations and new ventures with our clients. And it's very interesting. I think they've got to a point, their businesses are very established, and they've got to a point where the business is solid. The interior design business is solid. There's lots of private residential clients coming in. There's lots of property development clients coming in. And now it's time to look and broaden that brand. And, one of our clients is sort of partnering with a client of hers where she designed a spa for them, and they're looking at well-being and wellness consultations as a way to sort of build a new sort of stream of leads into the interior design service, but also actually curating a interior store that's all about health and well-being for their client who runs a spa. So that's quite interesting. And then we've got another client who works with a lot of celebrities, and we're actually putting collections together for the QVC shopping channel with some of those, and the design is curating all of that behind the scenes, and there's partnerships going on there, which is also very interesting. And then we've also got another design firm where they've been designing so much furniture with beautiful joinery companies over the last few years, and they're actually just thinking, you know what, we want to turn this into products, because we want to start using these pieces in our projects. We're not ready to retail yet, but actually we want to build a little collection that we can use for our projects. So there's some continuity through things, also engineering price points, to make that job a little bit more profitable. So there's lots of things that you can look at. And I think, when you're looking at collaborations, I look at some people that I know that have done some incredible collaborations, particularly in the blogging world. and you start small. Start really small. Don't commit to taking a stand at a big trade show if it's your first collaboration. It makes no sense at all. Do an online collaboration. Use Instagram Live. Use your blogs. Use your newsletters to launch and talk about a collaboration if you're going to do product. And then sort of learn, build your experience, and move on to the next thing.
Thank you. Cara, what would you suggest? Because you also have done a lot of different things, what would you suggest?
For collaborations?
In general, would you say, well, go for collaborations, or would you say, like, rather stick to yourself and try to find more customers in the interior design world?
I think I could only speak again for myself, but I think you kind of have to figure out what's your passion. Like, what are you interested in? Do you want to venture out? Do you just want to stay in interior design? You have to ask yourself these questions. What do you want to be involved in? Again, what are the risks? Who are you going to work with? All of that. Like, I just did a jewelry collaboration. I used to design jewelry in between my interior design career. I had a jewelry collection, and I approached a company. I was like, you know what? I want to do I love marble and I love diamonds and gold, and let's merge this together. I'm wearing like one of the rings that I designed, and I have a necklace on right now, but this was, I did these like pieces. I was like, you know what? That sounds fun. And it was something, again, a design that I wanted to kind of get out there and test out and try, and pulled it off and did it. It was just something that was fun and cool. But I've been very interested in product design. I'm like, this is something that I'm like, what can I do? What's not out there? What's missing? What would I want to put in a client's home or my own home? So like I just did, like, I'm putting together custom game tables, from like pool tables to table tennis, cornhole, darts, foosball, like all different kinds of things. I'm like, there needs to be like a funky, cool game table out there. So I'm doing it. I'm putting together a collection of all these like fun tables that I designed. So I think it's just, if you're feeling or inspired by something you see or something that's lacking, you have an idea, again, go for it, try it, take a risk. You kind of need that attitude, like, I'm going to reach out to this person and they might respond back positively, or they might not. And you go to the next thing, and you kind of, it's trial and error and reaching out. And, what's the word? I always say, what's the worst thing that could happen? Someone could say no, and then you move on, and, you find another way.
Kimberly, who is one of our participants, in the audience, asks, and maybe Nina, you have an answer to that. What if you have the jobs, but you can't keep up? And I think that's something that, I hear more and more as, just the home sector is really booming right now. So who do you hire first, and how do you keep up?
I think the most important person to hire, in my opinion anyway, is an accountant or somebody to keep track of the money, because that's the most dangerous part that can go wrong. So if all of that doesn't, gets out of control, that's serious problems. But then I think you need to look at the staff in a different way. You need to have somebody you're very unlikely to get a creative brain and a brilliant financial brain together. So I think you need to have you need to get somebody who's really organizational. And then you need to get somebody who likes to do all the sort of, putting out all the orders and getting all of that paperwork done. And then you need somebody who you can trust to go to the harbor and get the fill-ins that you don't have time to do, and who gets excited about all of that. So I think you need different people. And then I think if you do hit a moment that is, I like to have architects in my business so that we can do the sketches and the planning and all of that. And but then I think if you get to a point where suddenly there's just too much happening, I think you have to think about taking on people freelance, because there can be ups and downs. At the moment, everybody's incredibly busy because everyone's been sitting in their home staring at the wall and thinking, oh my God, we need to redo the house. And so there's a lot of work going on, but that could fall off. So you don't want to land yourself, especially in this country where you can't get rid of anybody, with a whole lot of people that suddenly you think, oh my God, everything, rather like Cara was saying, her business grew. And then you're thinking, you're the, what is it, the tail of the dog or the something. Anyway, you're doing the wrong bit of it. And so I think it's very important to maybe look at that and see if you can just pull in some people, or maybe somebody who used to work for you, to say, have you got some time? Would you come back for the duration of this job? And be a bit flexible. I think you need to be flexible at the moment, particularly.
Very, very, very helpful. Thank you. We have another person asking, and Grant, I would love to pose that question to you. What do you do if you feel stuck with a certain clientele for several years? How do you pivot or transition to a new clientele? It's funny because Melissa also in the audience asked a very similar one. She has lots of medium grade renovations, small budgets. How can you catapult to the next level? I think that's kind of the same question. Yeah. What is your suggestion there?
I mean, it's quite tricky because you also, businesses need money to function. So you've got to make sure that you're able to take on work and to basically keep the business running. A lot of our clients, particularly in the much larger firms, they take on everything that comes through their door, whether it's a one bedroom or, property developments, and they sort of only publicize 2 or 3 really interesting creative projects that they come across in the year. So, I think it's a case of make sure that you've got enough projects that are going to keep the business running, but then you have to change your approach to how you're finding these projects. You also need to think about what is your branding and marketing and messaging and imagery saying about you out in the market, because that's obviously attracting a certain type of person to your business. So I think you need to do a bit of a critical review there, basically print everything out, stick it on the floor. I love to do that because you can detach from it a little bit from when it's not on a screen, and look at it critically and say, actually, what is the messages that we are putting out into the market? What is that saying about us? Who is that attracting? How do we need to shift that to attract a different type of client, up, down, anywhere?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It's probably also, it starts with the type of pictures you put out there, and so on. Someone else asked, and Cara, I'm giving you the question, putting you on the spot. How do you handle doing design work for friends? I'm sure every single one of you has been there. So, Cara, how have you been handling that?
So this is a bit of a mixed bag for me. So, years and years ago, I had done work with a friend that actually was not a smart idea. It kind of, we patched our friendship since, but, we had a falling out over it, which is horrible. And that was like, after that, I was like, I'll never work with family or friends ever again. But I didn't stick to that either. I do help friends. My rule, which, my good friends, I'll never charge my friends. I just don't, or I will tell them that if it's like too much, I'll recommend them to go to somebody else, or I'll help give them advice. But I just don't think that mixing business with close friendships is a good mix. I think it's, it's hard. Or you could do a friend and family rate. I know people who do that. I know designers who charge their parents like decorating their homes. That's just something that I would never do. But, you have to feel comfortable and confident if you're going to do that, that keep things kind of smooth and on track. But it is tricky. I tend to not like to work with friends and take them on as like an actual signed on project. I don't do that.
Yeah. Marisa asks, she says, I'm friendly, and Nina, maybe you have an opinion on that. I don't know how much that actually exists in the UK. Otherwise, Cara, I hand over to you again. But she asks, I'm friendly with many realtors and builders who have asked me to stage their homes for sale. Is this a good move, as I don't want to get pigeonholed into doing just staging, but it just comes, just keeps coming up. what would be?
I think it's rather, I would have thought it was a good job and rather fun to do. And if you can turn that into a business, I think you have, I mean, it's a different mindset. It's rather like working on a magazine. I mean, you've got a deadline and you have to do it and you stage it. And I would think it'd be rather fun because you can, but it's a different sort of training and a different sort of person. And if you do it well, it's excellent. And actually, I was talking to an Australian designer friend of mine last night, and she employs somebody in her business who is exactly that, a stager, if you like, and who goes in and just gets it ready. Because quite often, if you've done a house, it's not ready for the photography because they haven't bought that extra picture, they haven't got everything complete. And so it's a good idea to stage it for them. And then they suddenly realize that all those things they said, oh, you know, we can make do with our china, it's fine. And then they realize actually what you're producing for them is something so out of they haven't thought of. So I think it's an important job, actually. I wouldn't denigrate it at all.
And maybe there's an opportunity also to talk with the realtor and say, look, can you suggest I join the second or third time someone visits so that you can be there and pitch something? You know, I think just staging is great if you want to stay in there. If you want to convert that into an interior design project, maybe it's worthwhile also to try to be
well,
there.
yes, because when the person buys the house, they might want to take it further. So that could be your entree into actually becoming an interior designer.
Yep. Really quick, Nina, I have a special remark also asking you how do you deal with friends? Do you charge? Do you not just work with friends? How do you do that?
Well, it's a tricky one. I agree. But fun enough, you said in my intro that I'd done a castle in Scotland, but that was for really one of my greatest friends. But I think if you are going to work for friends, I mean, she said, there's no way I want anyone else to have anything to do with my house. So what you do is you become incredibly professional, and it was in the north of Scotland. So I used to go up on Thursday and Friday. They would send the secretary would deal with all the travels, the financials. My accountant would tell her the rate, and then on literally I'd stay the weekend. On Friday night, she said, end of work. Now we have a drink and a lovely weekend. And that was her way of saying, but there was no way that she would accept me without paying for it. I'm doing a job at the moment for a client in Greece. And what I've said there is I will not charge for my time because I stay there all the time. It's like a second home. But I said, I do have to have an assistant on it. And I think if people are professional, if they want you, they don't want somebody else. So I think you have to be very, very professional, very clear about how you're going to charge, what it is. You make the agreement, it's all done, and that's it.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. I'm looking at the time, and the time is almost over. Before we say goodbye, I just wanted to stress again for everyone who is listening and for everyone who is super interested about what we just spoke about. Grant is in this field and also advises interior design firms mostly in the UK and in the US. Cara, you said you also offer services with that, and you find all of us on Instagram, in order to get in touch with us, because I do think it's very important topic, and a lot of things have changed in the last 12 months. Thank you very much for listening in and joining us today. And thank you so much, Nina, Cara, and Grant, for being on this panel today. It was a real honor to having you here, and I took myself a lot of notes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
This is so fun.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.